In the silent hours of introspection, you may find yourself haunted by a troubling question. Why do toxic friends appear and reappear in the story of your life as if drawn by some invisible thread? It can feel uncanny. Different faces and names, yet the same wounds, the same betrayals, the same draining weight on your spirit. Perhaps you sense at times that you are living out an ancient myth or a recurring dream, where you are destined to meet the same character in different disguises. This is not a mere quirk of fate or bad luck. In the worldview of Jungian psychology, such patterns are no coincidence at all, but rather profound clues from the unconscious, guiding you towards self-knowledge. Carl Jung, the wise Swiss psychiatrist, would invite us to turn our gaze inward and examine the hidden parts of ourselves whenever we repeatedly encounter turmoil in our relationships. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves, Jung observed, hinting that those traits we find toxic in our friends may reflect an unacknowledged part of our own psyche. It is as if the people we attract are mirrors, held up by the mysterious hand of the psyche, reflecting back aspects of our inner world. In Jung's view, each of us carries a shadow, the repressed, denied aspects of our personality, and we often project this shadow onto others without realizing it. Could it be that the very qualities we call toxic in a friend are the disowned parts of ourselves, pleading for attention? Consider the metaphor of the shadow. When the sun is high, our shadows are small and hidden beneath us. But as the light wanes, the shadow grows long and impossible to ignore. In the bright noon of life, when we are confident and everything seems fine, we hardly notice our own dark side. We wear a polite persona, a mask of kindness or strength, believing that the unsavory parts of ourselves have been left behind in the dark.
But inevitably, twilight comes. Stress, loneliness, or an identity crisis darkens our skies, and the shadow appears. Often, it shows up in the form of another person, someone who acts out the very things we avoid acknowledging in ourselves. You might be an introvert, gentle and accommodating on the surface, and suddenly you find yourself befriending an extrovert who is brash, selfish, or cruel. Why does this happen? It's as if your psyche sought out a living embodiment of your own suppressed assertiveness and anger. This friend carries your rejected qualities openly, and their presence forces you to confront what you have hidden within. In friendships and social bonds, we unknowingly seek balance, even if it brings pain. If you deny your own capacity for aggression or selfishness, you may unconsciously gravitate towards someone who has no qualms about those traits, someone who indulges in what you forbid yourself. The relationship becomes a dance of opposites, your outward niceness playing against their overt cruelty, your restraint against their chaos. To your conscious mind, it feels bewildering and unfair. Why am I stuck with this toxic person who hurts me? Yet from the viewpoint of the psyche, this encounter holds spiritual meaning and purpose. It is an opportunity to become aware of your shadow and to grow.
These toxic friends, then, might be understood as unwitting messengers from the unconscious. They show up in all their difficult guises, narcissistic, manipulative, deceitful, not merely to torment you, but to reveal something about your own inner needs, fears, and wounds. Jung believed that what remains unconscious does not just disappear, it finds ways to manifest in our lives, often as fate.
Until you make the unconscious conscious, he wrote, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The serial parade of toxic friends may feel like a cruel fate indeed, but it is really your unheeded inner world directing the show. If a part of you has been wounded in childhood, for instance, you might carry a belief that you only deserve love through suffering or sacrifice. Without realizing it, you then feel strangely drawn to friends who demand sacrifice, who take more than they give, who reenact the old drama of pain that you subconsciously equate with love. In this way, we are often caught in emotional trauma bonding not because we consciously want pain, but because the psyche is trying to resolve an old story. The child within you, perhaps, is still seeking approval from an unloving parent, so you find a friend who withholds affection or belittles you, hoping this time you can win the validation you never got in the past. This unconscious loyalty to old patterns has been called a complex, a powerful subpersonality formed by past experiences. Jung called these complexes the architects of our dreams and the devisers of our fate. They operate like puppet masters behind the scenes of our lives, drawing us toward people and situations that fit their script. So you may indeed feel as if an invisible hand places the same type of toxic individual in your path time and again. That is the power of a complex repeating its story until you finally see it and break free.
In myths and fairy tales, the hero is often betrayed or tricked by a close companion before he can complete his quest. This betrayer is the trickster archetype, a universal pattern that appears across cultures. The cunning Loki who brings about unintended wisdom, or the sly friend who forces the hero to learn discernment. Jung reminds us that such archetypes dwell not only in stories, but in our minds, in the collective unconscious we all share.
Thus, the toxic friend in your life can be seen as one of these archetypal figures, erupting into your personal story to teach you something essential. They may embody the very shadow you have refused to face, acting out the negativity or weakness you disown, much like an actor playing a dark role in the theater of your life. And as in all good stories, there is a lesson hidden in the drama. The crucial question becomes, will you recognize the lesson, or will you remain a passive character, bewitched by the external chaos and missing its inner meaning? This is the crossroads where growth begins. The moment you start to suspect that the pattern might have more to do with you than with fate or bad luck, you're standing at the threshold of a new chapter, one of conscious choice rather than unconscious compulsion. You begin to see that what felt like a curse may contain the seeds of transformation. But to truly change the narrative, you must do what Jung called shadow work. Bravely delve into the darkness within. Bring those hidden aspects to light and reclaim them as parts of yourself.
Such inner work is neither simple nor swift. It is a journey Jung likened to a descent into the underworld, a mythic quest where one must face dragons of fear, sorrow, and anger that lurk in the caves of the psyche. You might feel at times like the hero wandering through darkness with only a flicker of light in hand. But step by step, as you courageously shine that light on the shadowy figures within, they begin to lose their power to frighten or control you. By naming and acknowledging the rejected parts of yourself, you start to reclaim them. The aggression or neediness you once disowned no longer needs to storm into your life wearing someone else's face. You recognize it as your own and find a healthy channel for it. This is the essence of individuation, Jung's term for the process of becoming whole, of differentiating yourself from the collective norms and unconscious patterns so you can discover your true self. Individuation requires that you integrate the shadow, yes, but also other forgotten aspects of your being, your vulnerability, your creativity, your opposite-gendered soul image, the anima or animus within, and the many archetypal potentials that lie dormant. As you delve into this process, you may begin to see changes in your outer life that feel almost magical. Relationships that once seemed destined to hurt you either start to heal or quietly fall away. You might discover that the old friend who used to push all your buttons no longer has the same effect, because the wound in you that they used to press has been tended to.
What used to be an unconscious trigger has now become a conscious understanding, and so it loses its sting. This is not to say all toxic friends will miraculously transform into saints once you do your inner work. Often they won't. Instead, you may simply outgrow the need for such relationships. You find yourself calmly setting boundaries where before you would placate or panic. You move on from those who cannot respect the person you're becoming. And in doing so, you make space in your life for new, healthier connections to emerge, almost as if by synchronicity. Jung used the word synchronicity to describe meaningful coincidences, events that line up as if orchestrated by an unseen order. When you shift internally, you might notice synchronicities guiding you toward better people and situations, perhaps a chance meeting with someone who supports your growth, or stumbling upon an article or community about shadow work and healing at the very moment you needed it. It can feel like the universe responding to your new state of mind. In truth, it is your own psyche, now more aligned with your conscious intentions, that perceives and draws these opportunities. By becoming conscious of the pattern that was binding you, you have loosened its grip on your fate. To undertake this inner transformation, you will likely engage in practices that nurture self-awareness. Jungian psychology offers several tools. One is dream interpretation, paying close attention to your dreams, which are the nightly letters from your unconscious. In dreams, you may see symbolic enactments of your relationships and inner conflicts. Perhaps you dream of being pursued by a wild animal, only to realize that the animal carries the anger you never expressed. Or you dream of a dark figure in your house, representing a wounded part of you you've ignored. By reflecting on these images, writing them down, and asking what each element might say if it had a voice, you gain insights that your waking mind might miss. Another powerful method is active imagination, a meditative exercise Jung developed. In active imagination, you deliberately invite dialogue with the figures of your psyche. You might sit quietly and visualize meeting the very friend who betrayed you, but now on the inner stage of your imagination. There, you let the conversation unfold. You could ask them why they treated you as they did, and listen to the answer that arises spontaneously from the depths of your mind. You may find that this imagined friend begins to speak as a part of you, perhaps voicing your own self-criticism, or a long-buried resentment, or a plea for love that you have denied yourself. Through this process, you begin to understand that the toxic friend was a messenger carrying your own soul's drama. Such techniques are not mere fantasies. They are ways of giving form to the otherwise invisible forces in our psyche. By personifying and conversing with these forces, we take back the projection. What was unconscious becomes conscious. The traits or needs you had assigned wholly to the friend, they are the angry one, not me, or they are toxic, I am only ever kind, come back home.
You realize you too are capable of anger, and that anger can be righteous and protective in the right measure. You realize you too have the capacity for selfishness or cruelty, and owning that paradoxically allows your empathy and kindness to become genuine rather than self-sacrificing. As Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. In other words, true growth does not come from rejecting negativity or plastering it over with forced positivity. It comes from facing the shadow, understanding it, and integrating its energy in constructive ways.
This stands in stark contrast to the ethos of toxic positivity that pervades much of modern self-help culture. We live in a time where we are often told to focus only on the positive, to repeat affirmations that everything is fine, to smile for the sake of appearances even when we are hurting inside. But Jungian wisdom urges a different path, a path of wholeness, not one-sided light.
Mental health and genuine self-improvement are not achieved by denying the negative and fragile parts of ourselves. If you paste a smile over your pain, you simply invite the shadow to find expression elsewhere, perhaps through psychosomatic symptoms, or by attracting yet another hurtful friend to carry the negativity you refuse to acknowledge. Healing begins with truthfulness in the privacy of your own soul, admitting to yourself the full range of your feelings and experiences. It means saying, yes, I do feel anger, I do feel envy or fear, and then exploring why those feelings are there and what they are trying to tell you.
As you integrate your shadow and listen to the unheard voices within, you may undergo a kind of rebirth. The person emerging from this inner alchemy is more solid and less easily swayed by external storms. You find that you no longer depend on the approval of the group or the validation from the types of friends you once desperately sought. You become more comfortable in your own company because you are no longer at war with yourself. In Jung's words, you are individuating, becoming the individual you were meant to be, distinct and whole. Yet even as you cultivate this inner wholeness, you must carry it into a world that often pulls us away from our true selves. Modern life is full of distractions and influences that can either support our psychological growth or undermine it. Consider our digital age. On social media, the realm where personas reign supreme, it is easy to get caught up in illusions. We curate images of our lives for others to see, highlighting success and joy while concealing struggle, much like wearing a modern-day mask. In these online spaces, we might collect hundreds of friends and followers, yet still feel utterly alone or unknown. The psyche can sense the emptiness in such connections. The ancient instinct for survival that once made us cling to a tribe for safety now finds us clinging to virtual networks and numerical validations of worth. This can breed a quiet desperation, an anxiety that if we do not conform to the algorithm's expectations, if we do not broadcast perpetual happiness or achievement, we will be left behind. Social media anxiety creeps in, the fear of missing out, the fear of not being liked or seen, all of which pricks the tender places in our self-esteem and can reactivate old wounds. In this environment, the phenomenon of projection becomes amplified. Behind the safety of screens, people project their shadows onto others with alarming ease. We label acquaintances or public figures as toxic at the first sign of disagreement, often without reflecting on our own contribution to the dynamic. Likewise, we may envy the carefully crafted lives of others online, not realizing we are seeing only the persona they present, not the whole human being. Our algorithms, governed by cold code yet uncannily attuned to human weakness, learn to feed us what keeps us engaged, often stoking anger, outrage, or insecurity. This algorithmic control over what we see can reinforce our biases and fears. If you harbor a secret insecurity, you can be sure the algorithm will find content that triggers it. If you have a latent anger, the algorithm will show you countless villains to blame. In this way, the modern digital landscape becomes a hall of mirrors for the psyche, each feed and timeline reflecting fragments of our collective shadow back at us. For younger generations like Gen Z, who have never known a world without these digital reflections, the challenge is immense. They grapple with forming an identity in a hall of mirrors that never sleeps. Little wonder that so many young people experience crippling anxiety or fall into identity crises. When every step of individuation is on public display for judgment, the pressure can be overwhelming. And yet, within this pressure lies an opportunity. The focus on mental health has created a cultural moment where terms like shadow work, trauma, and self-care are part of everyday language. Many young people are seeking deeper meaning beyond the curated surface, turning to spirituality, therapy, or creativity to find a solid sense of self that isn't defined by likes or followers. They intuitively sense what Jung taught, that who looks outside dreams, but who looks inside awakens. Our cultural context also affects the kinds of friends and relationships we draw into our lives. In a world dominated by hustle culture and an ever-evolving AI-driven job market, people are often valued more for their utility than their humanity. The pressure to constantly achieve and improve professionally can spill over into how we treat each other. Friends may become networking contacts or rivals to compare oneself against, rather than sources of genuine support.
Caught in this race, we risk surrounding ourselves with relationships that are transactional or superficial. We might even label as friendship what is merely a strategic alliance fueled by mutual use or by the fear of being left behind in the race for success. Over time, living in such a way can lead to profound emptiness and burnout.
Many who have burned out after years of chasing success come to realize that some relationships they maintained were not nurturing, but actually contributed to their exhaustion, perhaps by reinforcing a workaholic identity or by offering no true empathy for their struggles. Burnout recovery often involves a re-evaluation of one's lifestyle and relationships, stripping away the non-essential to rediscover what truly matters. In this process, issues of wealth and survival also come to the forefront. If you carry a money trauma, for example, deeply ingrained fears and beliefs from growing up in poverty or with financially anxious parents, that will unconsciously influence your friendships too. Perhaps you learn to equate your worth with how much you earn, or you internalized resentment toward those who have more. This unhealed complex around wealth, part of your personal wealth psychology, might lead you to attract friends who mirror those beliefs. You might surround yourself with people who share a scarcity mindset, reinforcing your fears around money, or conversely fall in with friends who are reckless spenders, tempting you to sabotage your own financial stability whenever it improves. You may even find yourself exploited by a friend, always paying the bill or lending money, because deep down you struggle to say no, haunted by guilt or a sense of unworthiness about prosperity. Until you confront these inner beliefs about money, you may continually replay them in your social life, swinging between envy and guilt in your interactions. Recognizing how these modern pressures intertwine with our psyches is crucial. It is easy to blame the times we live in for the rise of shallow or toxic interactions. Indeed, the modern survival landscape is complex, and the external challenges are real. But Jungian wisdom again invites us to ask, how do our inner attitudes meet these outer events? A cutthroat work culture may be the backdrop, yet one person will navigate it with integrity and balance, while another loses themselves entirely in it. The difference often lies in consciousness. The more aware we are of our own values and wounds, the less we will unconsciously fall prey to cultural currents. We can participate in social media or ambitious careers without being devoured by them, if we remain observant of how they affect our souls. This might mean consciously limiting our exposure to endless doom scrolling or competitive comparing. It might mean remembering to treat people, friends, colleagues, even online strangers, not as means to an end, but as fellow souls on their journey. It certainly means pausing to reflect when a friendship starts echoing a toxic pattern, rather than rushing onward or blaming only the other person. In reflection, we may discern, is this conflict truly between me and them, or is it also an externalization of something within me? Modernity provides us new mirrors at every turn, but also new tools. The very conversations about mental health and authenticity that flood our podcasts and social feeds are part of a collective attempt to rebalance. We see a rising interest in a more mindful minimalism mindset, simplifying not just possessions but social obligations, choosing a few meaningful friendships over dozens of acquaintances, focusing on quality of experience rather than quantity of status symbols. This trend, at its best, reflects a yearning to step off the treadmill of endless striving and superficial connection. It aligns with the Jungian call to live in alignment with one's inner truth instead of external dictates. By adopting a minimalist approach to one's psyche, clearing out the clutter of others' expectations and the constant noise of media, we create space for the still, small voice within to be heard. In that space, authentic relationships can flourish, and those that were held together only by convenience or illusion can gracefully fade away.
By focusing on what is real and essential, you come to cherish the value of true connection over sheer quantity. It becomes clear that it is far better to have one or two companions who see and accept your authentic self than a crowd of associates who only know your persona. In the company of those who resonate with your true being, you may notice something beautiful and novel, the absence of the usual social masks and defenses. Conversations deepen, silences feel comfortable rather than tense. You might even experience a kind of timeless ease, an immersive harmony in which hours pass like minutes, the flow state of genuine friendship. This is the polar opposite of walking on eggshells around a toxic friend. Instead of anxiety and second-guessing, there is playfulness, mutual respect, and a sense that your souls understand each other. Such relationships are not perfect. No human bond is without occasional friction, but they are rooted in honesty and empathy, making conflicts easier to navigate without slipping into the old toxic patterns. Reaching this point, you can finally answer the question that once haunted you. Why do you attract toxic friends? The answer, from this hard-won perspective, is that something in you was drawing them as part of an unconscious effort to heal. They were the mirrors of the work you needed to do. Their betrayals, dramas, and disappointments forced you to face your own shadow and pain. In a sense, those toxic friends imparted a twisted kind of relationship advice, not through their words, but through the experience of what you no longer want to tolerate. The lesson was to turn within. No list of red flags or communication tactics would have liberated you until you understood why you kept inviting the flag bearers into your life. Now that you have done the inner work, you carry an awareness that fundamentally changes how you relate. With your boundaries fortified by self-knowledge, you simply will not magnetize the same type of tormentors anymore. Or if one crosses your path, you recognize the warning signs early and honor yourself enough to walk away. In embracing your shadow, you have reclaimed the projections that once discolored your world. You no longer seek others to complete what is missing in you. Instead, you approach others as a whole person, offering friendship rather than pleading for validation. This transforms the very energy you bring to any new encounter. People who thrive on exploiting others tend to sense when someone is not easy prey. Your newfound self-possession quietly repels those who are looking for victims. At the same time, your empathy and insight into yourself attract those who are capable of reciprocal respect. Like a melody attracting harmony, the healthier you become, the more you will find yourself surrounded by healthier dynamics. It might feel like life itself has shifted to a new phase, as if some curse has been lifted. What you are experiencing is the freedom that comes with self-awareness. The world has not magically changed, but your inner change is reflected in your outer world as if by a benevolent trick of fate. None of this means that life will henceforth be without difficulties or that you will never again encounter an unpleasant person. But you now carry the light of consciousness with you, and that makes all the difference. When you meet someone new, you can see them more truly, without immediately projecting your needs or fears onto them. You can discern what role they might play in your life without falling into naive idealization or undue suspicion. And you can decide with intention, not desperation, who deserves a place at your table. Jung wrote that we meet ourselves time and again in 1,000 disguises on the path of life. Having awakened, you will find more of those disguises friendly rather than hostile, because the meeting is no longer forced by unseen inner compulsion, but chosen by your aware mind and open heart. If there is a spiritual dimension to all of this, it might be found in gratitude and compassion. You may even feel a strange gratitude for the toxic friends who once hurt you, for they were catalysts of your growth. This does not excuse their behavior or mean you should invite them back, but it reframes them as unwitting teachers on your path. Likewise, you develop compassion for yourself and for others, an understanding that everyone carries a shadow, and many people are ruled by theirs without knowing it. You can forgive yourself for past mistakes and forgive those who trespassed against you, not to let them off the hook, but to release the hold of bitterness on your own soul. In doing so, you ensure that your shadow no longer needs to attract mirrors of pain.
It has your loving attention within.
Your journey, like the archetypal hero's journey of myth, has brought you back to where you started, but you are not the same. You descended into the dark, faced the dragon of your deeper self, and emerged with the treasure of insight. Now you walk in the world with that inner gold. Where once you felt cursed to attract toxic friends, you now feel empowered to cultivate healthy relationships, or simply to stand happily on your own until such friendships naturally arise. You have learned to trust the flow of life and your own intuition. When you live in alignment with your authentic self, life tends to unfold more smoothly. You find creativity and meaningful connections with greater ease, as though catching an invisible current that carries you forward. This is the gentle rhythm of individuation, the natural flow state of a soul no longer divided against itself. Thus, what was once a tale of misfortune becomes a story of empowerment and meaning. You have discovered a fundamental truth: the outer world, especially our relationships, reflects the state of our inner world. Change one, and the other follows. With this realization comes both responsibility and freedom. The next chapter of your life is yours, to write with the pen of a more conscious self. As you continue on the path of individuation, carrying both light and shadow in balance, you step forward no longer afraid of your own darkness, and no longer bound to those who would embody it for you. In your heart, a quiet confidence grows, for you have befriended yourself, and in doing so, you have opened the door to friendships that are true, supportive, and enriching. The journey was long and at times painful, but it has led you back to the most important relationship of all, the one you hold with your own soul. With that relationship thriving, the old toxic patterns dissolve, and you walk onward into a life of deeper meaning, connection, and peace.